Okay. So welcome back to this week's episode of BSU.
BSU, BSU. Hey, hey.
Oh my god, it never fails. I like look forward to that all the time. Yes, I love it. I love the energy. So welcome back to this week's episode of BSU. Last week we talked about hair, the different kinds of hair that we as Black people have, where we go to get our hair done, how important hair salons and barbershops are in our community, just a host of other things. So if you want to view that episode, let us know and we will direct you on how you can find the episode. But this week, we are going to talk about kind of the current climate and what's going on in our country in terms of the statues that have been removed, that have been knocked down, that have been taken down, whatever words you want to put in there. These statues have been removed, and just statues from all over the United States. So just to start off, we want to hear from you all, so feel free to write in. We love the feedback. We want to hear more from a lot of you, so please write in. And so I guess to start off, Dennetra and Keira, have you all heard about any statues that have been removed? If so, where, the name of it? Kind of give us a little bit of information.
Oh, well, let's not all hop in at the same time. Before I say anything, I first want to say that this is not an invitation for y'all to go out and revolt and start knocking over statues at your school or in your communities. We're not. we're the objective of the podcast today is not to ignite social violence, but just to discuss. So if you did knock down a statue, though, we want to know about it, though. Make sure you write that in. But make sure that was knocked down before this video, though. But seriously, for me, I've been following a lot of it. You know, I know many of us are familiar with the statue that got dragged through the streets in Madison. And as best as I can tell from what I'm following in the news is that many people just feel something that I've said many times in this podcast, that we as African Americans are tired of that skewed history. You know, tell it like it is. Stop celebrating all these people and lifting up all these historical figures that did nothing but traumatize and oppress our community. That does not warrant celebration. Tear that mess down, you know. More specifically, I think a lot of these statues are being torn down that are more Confederate, like colonels and things of that nature. That's just problematic. We don't want to look at that. We don't want to look at the person who hung 57 Black folks during their time, but you want to celebrate them on a horse. No, bring that down. Let's put up some historical Black figures or nothing at all. You can grow a bush there if you want to. Just bring that down.
Yeah. It's something that I've been thinking about a lot recently is that the idea of knocking down statues seems to be gaining traction. And I think, Dennetra, you have the exact numbers of how many statues there are versus how many have been brought down. But it seems like it's gaining traction only recently. But so many of us have been advocating for this, to bring down statues, to stop flying the Confederate flag, to change offensive and racist names of things and images of things, like team sports, professional team sports, high school mascots, things to that effect. For a really, really long time, I'm thinking about Bree Newsome, who in North Carolina, they were putting pressure on, I think it was the Capitol building, to stop flying the Confederate flag, and they wouldn't do it. And so she just climbed the flagpole and took it down.
Oh my gosh.
She got arrested and then released, and the subsequent pressure, because it got so much press, then they did take it down. But that was a while ago. But, you know, it just goes to show how long we've been advocating for these things to change. And now it seems like there's a little bit of momentum in that direction.
Yeah, when I was doing the research, I did see that there was a list of 58 statues that have come down so far. But unfortunately, at first I was impressed. I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna be honest. I was like, oh wow, that's awesome. Until I looked at the numbers and it said that there was like 1,500 though. And then 700 on top of that. I have to look up how they broke that down. But then I'm like, oh well, then that's no longer impressive, but at first, while I was celebrating, like, wow is what I was saying at first, wow. And I'm like, no, but the wow should be that they're still even there. Like, why are they even still there? They shouldn't have been up this whole time anyway. And why are we celebrating this? First of all, y'all lost the war. So stop trying to relive it every day of your life by celebrating all these horrific people and these horrific occurrences just to make you feel better about losing that war. Let me just say that. But on a serious note, and to piggyback on what Keira was saying about just the imagery that continues to hang, that's oppressive and that's traumatic for us. I remember a couple years back, I don't know if all of Wisconsin is We Energies. Y'all We Energies in Green Bay too, right?
That's a question I do not know I don't pay We Energies, but I don't know if they're partners or whatever.
Okay. So I was going to say the California version of PG&E or the Wisconsin version of We Energies, but the folks that supply the electricity in Atlanta, their office, they had a noose hanging up at their headquarters. Yes. And a couple years ago, it was just in the paper that they just took it down. I'm like, are you kidding me? They had a noose. Are you kidding me? So I feel like it's this type of stuff. This is just the stuff that continues to perpetuate this ideology of white supremacy and continues. And I don't think anyone's really thinking about how traumatic this feels for us to walk into a space and see a noose hanging above my head as I'm trying to come pay my Wii bill. How is this okay? So
I think when we're talking about these statues and how they're being removed, the question for me that comes up is, why was this a statue in the first place? And I get that history, when it's being taught, there's a lot of information that's taken out. It's diluted, right? It's a lot that's taken out. We're going to water this down a little bit and make it appealing, or whatever word you want to use, for everyone, right? So I think when these statues of these individuals are put up in different places, whatever time of the year they were put up, whether it was the 1800s or the 1900s, whatever the case is, that I think in that moment, those statues that got put up, the people who put them up, either they probably ignored the horrific parts that they contributed to history, or they didn't know. Now, I believe if you put a statue up of, let's say we're going to use Lion King, for example. If you put a statue up of Scar, you know exactly what he did, which was, wrong. He killed his brother, right? So why would you put a statue up of him when he killed his brother, and then when he was leading the Pride Lands, he pretty much, it was just like all, there was like no food, nothing around, right? So why put a statue up of this person? Now, I believe if you put a statue up, but if you can come as a government official, whatever the case may be, and say, you know what, I know we put this up before, or I know they put it up years ago, but we as a people need to take this down. It shouldn't be a group of people fighting to tell you why this is wrong. I should not have to say, you know what, you need to take this statue of Scar down because it's wrong. It should come up. And then that just goes back to history. I think, why would we as the Black community, why would we want statues up that constantly remind us of our horrific past? Again, that's the part that's left out when history is being taught. The Christopher Columbus statue in Chicago was just brought down, I believe it was last weekend or the weekend before, and there was a lot of mixed feelings about it. Some people were like, why is this coming down? He wasn't a bad guy. Others have a different view of him. And again, like you said, Dennetra, with that news, that's constantly reinforcing like this negative, like just this terrible image for the group of people that are being oppressed, that are being marginalized, things like that. So I hope that as a country, people come together and they realize, you know what, we got more other statues that need to come down. We got many more that need to come down. Let's celebrate the good. That's like, again, That's like me telling you to give me all the candy that you have, and I'm gonna go take it, to, I don't know, take it somewhere and give it to other people, and they make a statue out of me. Well, what I did was wrong. I took the candy that y'all had, and now, I'm being painted as this perfect person that brought candy to this land. Like, no, that's not okay. That's not how it went. So,
yeah. And something that I'm really thinking about too is like, I think there is a misunderstanding when we say, like, when people say, they're like, well, it's just history. Like, why? Like, it's just history. But they're forgetting that the presence of these statues, the presence of the Confederate flag, contributes to an ongoing horrific present.
yes.
Like that we are part of this history of violence, that it's not over. And the presence of the statues, the presence of these symbols is actually part of a continuation of history to this present moment that is like, we can't argue that it's history or that it's over until we take them down and it's over. Like, we have to take them down and change the systems and then give it 450 years. And then we can say, okay, that was history, but it's currently happening right now. This oppressive regime is currently happening right now still. And so I think that's something that I always have to remind myself of, like, wait, I'm not going to get into a conversation or an argument with someone about history because it's not history. It's not history yet. It's still going.
Exactly.
I wanted to actually jump back to what Tori said about the whys. Why would you put this up and this person did? Because it doesn't affect them. These people who are erecting these monuments, it's not their ancestors that were slaughtered. It's not their ancestors that were hung, and I know we've all heard the phrase, it's been 400 years, get over it already, and things like that. For some people, as Keira said, this is not like an ongoing constant struggle for Black Americans. For some people, they really think things are okay and we are overreacting and it's a part of our history, so why should we take it down, and some people are still living that world where for them they're just unable to shift their lens just a little bit and try to look at it from our perspective and how we would feel. And unfortunately, because they're not the ones that's been the oppressor, we can't even draw a parallel for them. We can't even be like, well, imagine if, because there's no story like that for that in their history. So we can't be like, how do you think your people felt when? There's none of that for them. So, I think that just to play devil's advocate, if I step on the other side of the fence and look at it from another lens, when it doesn't affect you, I think sometimes it's easy to get caught up and swept into the whys, instead of just hearing how hurtful it feels to that community. Like Tori said, why does it take a whole crowd of people to protest and ask for you to take this down before you as a human being will say, man, we should not honor this individual who slaughtered 30,000 Black Americans because it's wrong as a human being.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's so hard because, like, Dennetra, it's interesting because you say it doesn't affect them. But facts are, it does. It affects them in the opposite way that it affects us. As long as we are being held down, they cannot be lifted up unless there's someone underneath, right? And so it's not something that doesn't affect them. It's something that affects them actively every day, and it upholds their position of power in society. And so when we come and say, no, you can't have Chris Columbus statues, no, you can't have Confederate soldiers statues, then they're like, this is a threat to my power, which I do actively enjoy, right? Like, I do actively have. It's not that, because as long as we're still being pushed down, they are still being lifted up when we're having this kind of dynamic of oppression. And so it makes sense that they're like, it makes sense that people are resisting it, because it symbolizes a massive shift in the way that they get to navigate this world with impunity.
Yeah, you hit the Nail on the head with that one. Mic drop.
And on that note, we done.
Right. Yes. Before we wrap up, Dennetra, before you take us away, I did want to say we do want to hear from you all. If there's statues that you think should be put up, write us and let us know, like, hey, I think we should put a statue of this person up, and here are the reasons why. If you know of statues that you don't necessarily agree with that person or whatever it represents, write us in and let us know. Let's share the knowledge with one another and let's get the conversation going. Our email address is bsu@bg Club foxvalley.org. I was about to spell the whole thing out, but BG Club foxvalley.org. So there you go, Dennetra.
Yes. Write us in, let us know your thoughts. We want to hear it. And in the meantime, thank you so much for joining. Thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for sharing this moment with us and pondering some of these things that we are thinking about in our community as we are all noticing some changes, some good, some bad, some indifferent, but it's just an interesting time. And so we thank you for letting us share this moment with you. And make sure you join us next week for Here It Come. Brace yourself. BSU.
Yes, we will see you again next week. Thank you all for joining us.
Bye, y'all.